Right, welcome everybody. My name is David. I'm the Director of Education here at Signature Theater, and we're so happy to see all of you here at here in the Max instead of Into the Woods for this month's Inside Signature, and we are happy to imagine all of our friends at home watching the program there. A couple announcements before we get into this, things to look forward to, things that are coming up here at Signature. Tomorrow night, we have the final performance of this year's Signature in the school's production, The Voices on Blackwell Island. Last I checked, there were 2 seats left. Fight for those amongst yourselves, please. We'd love to see you there. A group of local high school students and a world premiere play written by Danny Stoller, also featuring Holly Twyford. I don't want to gloat too much about it because I directed it, but it's good. Okay, so other things coming up. We currently have next door in the Arc, The First Lady of Song, our latest cabaret and Ella Fitzgerald tribute. That runs through the 5th. On the 6th, we have our latest SigWorks reading, Trouble by Audrey Cephaly. And coming up on the 10th, we have a sing-along. Merrily We Sing Along. We're doing an evening of singing Sondheim love songs, Love I Hear. And next month's Inside Signature on March 2nd, we'll be featuring a Wester Zarif from our upcoming production of Selling Kabul. That'll be 1 p.m. In the lobby here at Signature or on YouTube for our friends at home. So lots going on here, like always. So for those of you that have never been to one of these events before, they're pretty casual. When you have a question, just raise your hand. When our friends at home have a question, just pop it in the chat and they'll flag me down. We'll take the question at an appropriate moment. Today we get to take a peek behind the curtain at what's going on here, creating our productions here at Signature. Often we're meeting with actors and writers, directors, and the like, but today we're putting the spotlight on the people that shine the spotlight, as it were. And we are going, some of you looked up. It's cute. Some of you, today, we're going to pay attention to the man behind the curtain. Attention must be paid. We're going to meet a couple of friends from our production department, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Give us your name and what you do here at Signature. Just job title. We'll get into the nitty-gritty later. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Natalie Krzyzewski, and I'm the costume director.
I'm Pam Weiner. I'm the associate prop master.
Dan Kimball, lighting supervisor.
Awesome. So, first off, where are y'all from? Let's get to know you just a little bit before we get into the details.
I'm from Cumberland, Maryland.
Nice.
So out in the boonies. Western Maryland, if my parents were watching, there you go.
Awesome.
I'm actually from Silver Spring, Maryland. Not the boonies at all. Not too far from here.
I'm from a very small town in Wisconsin.
Okay, awesome. And I'm curious, and we can take these in whatever order people feel like answering, but I'm curious to hear like how all of you fell into theater in the first place. I know for a lot of people, acting is the gateway, and then they find they'd rather do something else. What led you into this world of theater? Whoever wants to share their story first.
Are you sure you want me to start? Oh, man. I was forced. My mother made me learn how to sew when I was 12. And when I graduated from high school, they said, you can do anything you want except theater.
Were you doing costumes in high school for
No, I
productions?
actually acted in high school. But I started going to undergrad for a bachelor's degree in apparel design. I'm a terrible designer. I'm an engineer, but I went to grad school and I have a master's degree in costume production. So I know how to put clothes together.
Fantastic. Thank you.
I did stage crew in high school, and then I went to college for pre-vet. And then I realized I missed doing theater. So I worked in all of the departments pretty much at my college. I went to UMD, ended up sticking with props. I did a bunch of internships around the country. I do not have an advanced degree, but I put my time in working at various theaters.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm the stereotypical one that David talked about. I started as an actor in high school and was a musician too at the time, and then got to college and realized that acting really wasn't fulfilling my creative needs. And I thought, oh, what are those lights? What are those guys doing up there? And I ran follow spot for a production of Annie Get Your Gun as part of a prereq in college, and that's when I realized you could have a career doing this, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
Fantastic. Cool. And how do I want to word this? So It sounds like fairly typical career paths for the most part. I want to talk theory a little bit. We come in with lighting and props and costumes, and I think, like, as audience members, we know what lights are, we know what they are, but we don't have the theoretical backgrounds that all of you have. Break it down for us. We can start with Dan since you've got the mic. Let's talk lighting for a minute. I know beyond making faces visible, which matters a lot, what are lights doing for us in storytelling?
I mean, yeah, first and foremost, yeah, it's can you see the actors, right? Can you see the action on stage? Can you see the set? So it's a very practical medium. It's very utilitarian sometimes. But any lighting designer, lighting person will tell you that there's way beyond. There's way more to it than that. And it's about helping to set the mood, the tone of the production. Obviously, like, very, very, like, mundane things like time of day, is it night, is it day, where are we inside, are we outside, those kinds of things can be accomplished through lighting. That, you know, it's easier to accomplish it through lighting than it is to change the set entirely around, especially if we're going from indoors to outdoors. And then, yeah, things like I said, mood and tone. It's about sort of reflecting what the words are on the page in the script, and also what the actor is doing and how they're interpreting those words, and then helping to give them an environment that feels appropriate for the moment. That's one of the harder things that young lighting designers have to learn. Is you can do a lot of flashy and very cool things with lighting. You go to any rock concert and you'll know what I'm talking about, but you have to know when to not do something. You have to know when to kind of pull back and let the action on stage really drive the moment, and you're just there to support it. So yeah, I mean, it's obviously there. I could do a full semester on that, but that's the
okay.
nuts and bolts
Awesome.
of it.
Thanks. Pam, what's a prop? Let's start with the basics.
Well, at its most basic, the easiest way to explain it is anything that you would put into a moving van. So it's not the walls of the house, it's not your clothes, but it is your kitchen table, and it is your lamp, and it is your shoebox, and it is all of the other things that are small enough to be carried or interacted with, that aren't covered under the other departments. On a grander scale, it's pretty much anything other people don't want to do.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's all of the greenery, it's the dressing, it's the actual bookshelf, it's a lot of greenery. But we also do a lot of crossover things. So, like, we have practicals on stage. You can see the lamps that are lit up there. So that was between us and lighting. There's a lot of costume props, briefcases, things that are collaborated as well. We've got a radio crossing with sound. So we do a lot with other departments and the scenic department as well.
Love it. Thank you. And teach us a little bit about costumes. What do clothes tell us about a person? All that stuff. Yeah.
When I get renderings from a designer, I get to know what the characters are like in the show, because in design, there are ways to dress the villain, and there are ways to dress the protagonist, and there are ways to dress families or groups of people so you know they're all in the same group. So that's the theory. And then me as an engineer, which is really what I do, instead of building buildings, I build clothes. Sometimes you need to make things fit really well and make a character look really sharp. Sometimes you want a character to look terrible. Sometimes you want a character to be dirty or bloody. And again, like Pam said, we work with props a lot with blood, if there's blood. Oh no, I have secrets about Sweeney Todd. So our job is to inform the audience where a character stands in the story without them ever having to open their mouth.
That's great. Any questions so far from our audience? Yes, please.
Yes, the prop lady. You've got a lot of really nice furniture here. Does the theater own the furniture? Do you rent it?
Okay, and I'm going to repeat the question for our audience at home real fast. So, question was the furniture on this set for Into the Woods as an example. Do we own that stuff, or do we purchase it, rent it, build it? Yeah.
Yeah, so sourcing is a huge part of our job. So a little bit of everything, really. We do have a warehouse where we keep stuff that we've decided we might be able to use again in the future. So there are some pieces that have made it into half of the shows that I have done here because they're just really good pieces. We do a lot of Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist and thrift shopping to find pieces. And we also have good relationships with the other theaters in town that we do a lot of borrowing and renting out to other places when we need stuff.
Can I ask a follow-up on that? Like, is the goal always to find it before you have to build it, or is that, yeah.
It really depends. If it's something where it's, it's a table, it needs to look like this, and we can find it, absolutely. For some things, we really need to build it because it needs to do something special or be particularly reinforced or have some feature that would make it more difficult to take an existing thing and alter it. But we also do that where, we have chairs that are going to be danced on. We make sure they don't have springs in them anymore. We take springs out of basically anything, really. Take them out of cushions, take them out of sofas, you don't want springs. They make a mess. So yeah, it really depends on the needs of the piece.
Okay, great. Please.
For the lighting, I assume it also entails the setting of the lights at the beginning of a production. And how much of the lighting, for instance, here is permanent? How much do you have to bring in? What goes into and the time that goes into setting them in the right directions and that whole aspect of it?
Yeah.
All right. So the question was about in part, the placement of the lights. Is that part of the job, making sure the lights are in the right positions? How long does that take? Talk to us about hanging and all that.
Yeah. So primarily, my job here at Signature is very similar to Natalie's in that I'm the chief engineer of the lighting that we do here. So we employ visiting lighting designers, and they'll give me a drawing of where they want the lights for any particular production. Permanent, this is such a fluid space, so there's very few permanent fixtures that stay in one spot. It's primarily just like the house lights up on Dress Circle and the work lights. Everything else we move from show to show. So right now, this lighting rig is up for the student production. It's the same lighting rig that we had for Into the Woods, but starting next week, we're going to take all of these lights down from the air, either up in the catwalks or down here to the deck, and put them up in brand new positions with brand new circuiting. They'll be hooked up to different dimmers. So it changes every production. We, just to piggyback off what Pam said a little bit, we own probably 95% of the lighting equipment that we use. We try to, if we can afford to buy it, we buy it. Because renting the same thing over and over again, you're going to end up spending that money anyway. But there are some things that just simply are currently out of our reach that we would love to own. If any donors are out there, give me a call. But so yeah, we actually, there's the only rental in Into the Woods actually were the lights that lit the back wall behind the band up there. That's it. Everything else for Into the Woods we bought or we own. Or now, well, if we bought it, we now own it, I guess. But yeah,
That's great. And yes, please.
For step this size with these large walls, when you're finished, do you discard them or put them in a warehouse? Or do you...
Great. So I don't know if we have the answer. Yeah, go for it.
We have the answer.
Okay, cool. Okay. So the question was, with a set like this, once the show's done, do we just discard these walls or do we try to repurpose them?
We do actually try to reuse as much as possible. We have a couple people who are going to be coming in to help us take down all of the vines on the set. They'll be going to various other theaters and theme parks and creative art spaces. But the majority of it isn't, unfortunately, reusable. There are actually across the country several places that do accept waste from theaters to sort of do a little more repurposing and recycling. Which we do try to do. We have a guy who comes and takes all of our scrap metal for recycling. So we try, but there's a lot of stuff that just can't get reused.
Barbara, please.
I think I have two questions.
Great.
On costumes, how many costumes can you get from your costume place out in the sky? Or do you have to sew the new costumes? I was interested in the costume that Danny Stoller in the last act of, or whatever, last scene.
Uh-huh.
Of
Which way to the
Which
stage?
And because it was so gorgeous. And then the second part of my question is now for you, and that is that how did you build that mantle?
Okay, so the first question was similar to questions that have been asked of the other departments in terms of how much are you able to repurpose and what are you building yourself? For example, the dress that Danny Stoller wore at the end of Which Way to the Stage. And let's just go that far and then we'll address the second question.
Okay. Danny's dress specifically was made from scratch, from yardage. We had a lot of tulle. It was a big floofy ballerina skirt, and I mean big. Yeah, that was all built. And in general, it really depends on what the designer has drawn. If it's a modern show, we just go and buy it. Into the Woods was a beautiful combination of newly built pieces, reworked pieces from the 2007 Into the Woods, but you would have never known that because we changed them so dramatically. So we rented things from Shakespeare, from Arena, we all have pretty much symbiotic relationships with all the other theaters. So they come and borrow from us, we come and borrow from them. And that's where we get our costumes from. So it really does depend on the show.
Great. And then the second question was about building the mantle here on the Into the Woods set. I don't know if that's your territory. But
It wasn't me. I did not do it. We did put the lights up. But it, thank you, Dan. The scene shop took care of it. And it's a lot of buying trim and sort of putting things together in a way that looks like it was intentional, which honestly is a lot of what we do as well. You know, you go to Home Depot and you look around and the Home Depot people are like, can I help you find something? I'm like, you cannot, because I'm not using anything for its intended purpose. So there's a lot of, there's a couple companies where we can get like the capitals for the columns and all of the various trim and molding and flexible molding and all of the little bits. So it's just sort of finding all of the pieces and then putting them together and putting a nice finish on it so it looks intentional.
sorry, excuse me. Yes, please.
Like, what would happen if you had a show that was coming up, like within like the next day? What if you had a show, and then one of your like biggest plot pieces breaks?
Okay, so let's talk about once shows are open. Talk about things breaking during a run.
It's a frantic scramble. We fix it. We usually have a prop runner we are hiring currently for that position, but we have somebody who is in charge during the show of making sure that everything is running smoothly and making little fixes for things as they happen, because it does happen, things break. And hopefully the person that is there for the show is able to take care of it and make it better, at least a Band-Aid on it until the prop master and myself can come in and take a more detailed look. But yeah, we fix it. Sometimes we have to replace it. Sometimes if we know that there is something that's getting a little sad, we might go in and try to find a backup piece for it. So something will have to get switched out in the middle just to make sure that we have safety being paramount for the actors. And then, it looks appropriate, but we can't always get the exact same thing. So when we can get the exact same thing, we do. Not always possible.
Milky White, I think, is an example.
Milky White also came from the last production. She got a very, very big facelift. Yes, very heavily altered. She functioned entirely differently. So that's something we couldn't replace. So we had to come up with fixes, and there were several different layers of fixes that had to be done based on what was breaking and what had been done previously. With the show, we had 2 extra tables that were waiting backstage just in case something happened to this one. We had 3 extra chairs backstage just in case something happened to this one. I think those are the main things that we were really worried about during the production. But yeah, we sort of figure it out as we go.
That's great. Yes, George, please.
Dan, can you explain what focus is?
Great. So the question was, what does it mean to focus lights? Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. So when we change all the lighting around and take them down and put them back up in a new location, they're clearly not going to be pointed where they want to be pointed any longer. So every production we do, there's a 12-hour call that happens before we start tech rehearsals, and that is our focus call. And so we bring in, I have 8 electricians usually, give or take, in the room with myself and the lighting designer and any assistants they may have. And those 12 hours are just spent pointing every single lighting fixture in the air or on the ground to where the designer wants it to be, so that they all work in harmony with each other. And sometimes it's just this one light has to hit this one particular, like there are lights that are pointed, at that big tree limb up there. And that's all they do. But then there are other fixtures that are just part of a larger system that are just front light or side light or back light for the playing space. So that's typically, I'm getting a very annoying phone call right now. But yeah, so it takes us about 12 hours, give or take, depending on the size of the rig.
That's great. Any other questions? Please, right here.
You said you bring in 8 electricians for this focusing. Are there people who just sit around and wait for a call?
Okay,
No.
so let's talk about freelance contractors and the question about bringing in electricians. Are they just sitting around waiting for these calls? Yes.
I wish they were just sitting around waiting for the calls. I would have fewer difficulties getting people if they were just sitting at home twiddling their thumbs. No. So I would say probably 80 to 90% of our workforce are overhire workers just in the DC metro area. And I think that's true across pretty much every production department here. It's that old hurry up and wait mentality that the military is so used to. We have a few weeks of really intense push, and then 4 weeks while the show runs of just preparing for the next show and a lot of paperwork and planning and purchasing. And so during those weeks of really intense work, that's the only time it makes sense to bring in these people. And we're currently, my overhire list of people that I can reach out to see if they want to come in and work, it's about 30 people on that list. And on any given production, I might have anywhere between 10 to 15 different people come in and do at least a day's work over the course of load-in or tech rehearsals. Yeah, it's a lot of overhire labor. They really make it happen, honestly.
Any other questions? Please, yes.
Are your shops in this building? So your technical director, the skating shop, all in this complex?
So the question is our shops here on site, is everything built here?
Currently, yes. We do have I don't know quite how long plan, but we are going to be building a new production center, which we are all very excited for because it's pretty cramped and we need more space to be able to do things the way that they should be done and we want to do them. But yes, currently everybody is building everything on site. I know my shop ends up shopping a few things out for Pacific Overtures. We've got someone building puppets for us. We've got someone building some of the larger structural items for us because we don't have the space or the resources to do it in here. But the majority of my stuff, certainly, I think all of Dan's stuff.
Yeah, we utilize off-site storage just like everybody.
Oh, can you say that
Yeah.
into the mic one more time? Thank you.
We utilize off-site storage.
Thank
just
you.
I do lighting,
They
not
get
sound.
persnickety. Okay. Thank you. Great. And your stuff is kind of everywhere. You have multiple places to store things.
So we have an annex across the street that way where all of our costumes are stored, and hats and jeans and strange things. Handbags, those aren't strange, but there's a lot of weird stuff over there, as you might imagine. My room is very small. There are two permanent employees in the costume department, like there are in props. Dan, you have 3, right? Or 4? 2. But much like Dan, I overhire. I don't have a 30-person list. I have like an 8-person list. But I also hire drapers from other theaters. A draper is the person who makes the pattern and makes the decisions about how the garment is built. So we hire drapers from other theaters or freelance drapers, and they'll be like, I will take these number of costumes and take them to my house or my shop and build them, and I'll fit and deliver them by the time you need them. For Pacific Overtures, I've never had to do this before. We have 4 different outside craftspeople. We have a puppet draper who's clothing the puppets that the puppet maker is making.
Wow.
It's enormous. I have at least 2 outside drapers. I have my staff draper. I will be draping. It's a really big show, and it's going to be gorgeous.
I love it. Any other questions from our friends here? Yes, Barbara.
Where is your facility being built at the store things? Can you tell me that?
I think I
So,
can.
yeah, the question was, where's the
Looking to
facility
the
going?
ones in
Where's this dream production center going to be built?
I believe the plan currently is for, well, the original Signature Theater, the garage, is currently where our warehouse space is. So that's where some of Dan's lighting is stored, not where the costumes are, but scenic and sound and our company management, our Christmas decorations is all out at the garage right now. So the current plan is that we will be moving all of that to a new warehouse space, which is beautiful and large, and we will fill it up very quickly. And then to take that original Signature Theater location and turn that into a production space.
Great.
Another theater.
No,
No.
sorry, production center. So props and scenic and paints and at the moment costumes are going to be moving over there. So things will be built off-site, but not that far away, and then brought over here for everything.
Great. Maggie, please. Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm
But
sorry.
it's and on YouTube, but
Where, it feels quite real in terms of our plans, but we have a lot of work to do to make it a reality.
so folks at home,
Thank you,
just
Maggie.
to catch you up to speed, this production center that we're talking about is still in the early phases. It's not exactly happening yet, but we hope it will someday soon. We know it will someday soon.
But we have to raise a lot of money and do a lot of work.
We have to raise a lot of money, do some work first. You know where to donate. Thank you. Okay, right here.
I'd be interested in hearing what has been like the biggest challenge in each of your sections that you had to work on to avert a horrendous catastrophe.
Okay, so biggest challenges you've faced in the shows that you've worked on here.
Oh, God.
Okay. Let's let someone else go first.
The thing that the costume department lacks most of all is time. Because the other departments who build things, and this is casting no shade on anyone, but this is just how it is, they can start building 8 weeks before rehearsals start, or 5 weeks before rehearsals. Okay, Pam's making faces, but
We're going to
we
get some
can't-
clarification.
we in costumes can't really start until there's human beings to put the clothes on. So if casting is behind, if we lose cast members, if they're in California for 8 weeks doing a different show and aren't going to show up until first rehearsal here, it really takes time away from our department to get the costumes made. And we still do it somehow magically. My job is to make sure that the actors are clothed, comfortable, and safe.
It's great.
So this is my 9th season here. So there's been quite a few moments of mild panic, I will say. Always taken care of. We make it happen. We make it beautiful. But we do rely a lot on other departments. I was making some faces when Natalie said that because my department is able to start large projects that we know about when we know about them. But there's also no specific props designer on our shows. So we're working with the set designer who's not always focusing on the props at the beginning of the process because they need to look at the overall picture before they can start narrowing down. So, for example, Pacific Overtures, we've had a wonderful designer who, this is my prop list for Pacific Overtures. I just ran in here from a meeting for that. Who provided us with research and options and what she wanted. And we were able to get started on it very early, which was great because a lot of stuff was coming from Japan. But, I have other shows where the set designer isn't paying attention to it, or it's things that it's not really on their plate. It's stuff that we just need to figure out. And there's a lot of stuff that comes up during rehearsal where, we've had during, gosh, I don't even remember what show it was, but in the middle of rehearsal, like a week before tech, they decided they wanted a very specific chaise. And the prop master drove down to North Carolina to pick one up that we found. So, stuff comes up quickly, and we don't always have a lot of notice or time to take care of things. So, yeah.
Thank you.
I'll say this. So sometimes lighting designers want to take a big swing at an idea. An example that comes to mind is masterpieces of the oral and intangible history of heritage. Thank you to
of humanity.
Anyway, it was masterpieces. Yeah. That's what we just call them, masterpieces. It was a world premiere here, 2019. I don't know, somewhere around there. Anyway, and for anybody that saw the show, it was sort of set amongst just piles of rubble and this just lighting fixtures kind of strewn about. And the original idea was for the show to be lit entirely by the fixtures that were just strewn about the rubble, like these practical lights that were hanging from the ceiling. No standard theatrical stage lighting fixtures. And we got through the weekend of tech, and we were just before first previews, and the decision was made that this isn't working anymore. We need more light. And so I had to quickly schedule an overnight call of overhire workers to hang a bunch of stage lighting fixtures for the designer. I mean, it worked. We got it done. But it's that kind of thing that sometimes designers just take a really big bite into an idea, and they're not willing to let it go until it's just way too late in the game to do anything about it without just an enormous amount of effort. So we're at the mercy of designers, directors, and also each other. I mean, if we're having to work on a production together and there's certain projects that require a scenic build and then a lighting install, if scenery is behind, I'm behind. And so that, but you make it work. You figure it out. There hasn't been anything that has made me want to quit this profession yet. And there's been quite a number of things. And I'm sure all three of us could tell you story after story after story of things going wrong and things that were not the way that we planned them to be, and late nights and early mornings. And that's just part of the job. I mean, and we keep coming back the next day and do it all over again.
That's great. Related to what Dan was just talking about in terms of masterpieces being a particularly, I don't want to say difficult, but a surprising challenge. Are there particular shows for either of you that you think, or pieces that you've had to build or anything like that, where you're like, that one was hard?
The car and Crazy for You was a real big thing for us. Also a couple of pieces in Diner, I think, were large builds that we were we were using the garage as our shops briefly in an interlude several years ago. So we were building off site for the first time and trying to navigate that with what we were used to doing and how people were used to communicating with us, which was a learning experience.
A chorus line.
Yeah.
We built 13 sparkly silver tuxedo jackets and jumpsuits in 4 weeks. 4 weeks. The fabric came, I had so many people in the room. There were probably 8 stitchers in the room. The fabric was, I like to call it tinsel held together by string. I couldn't draw on it. I couldn't see the lines, where to cut, where to stitch. Oh. It frayed. The fabric came late. It was just an ordeal. The only reason I got a day off in the whole 30 days is because the designer had trouble making decisions. So I'm like, I'm going home. See you later.
Blessed.
But I'll tell you what, when I saw that kick line on the stage, I'm like, wow, where did that stuff come from?
And that sort of is, I think, what makes it worth it is, even if it's a piece that I've been struggling with for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 months, once it goes up on stage, nobody else is seeing the flaws that I'm seeing, which I'm definitely seeing, but nobody else knows they're there. Nobody else knows what it's supposed to look like. So that is really helpful with all of these pieces. I would say 97% of the time, the final vision, the final production is worth all of it.
That's great. Yes, please.
By the way, I was going to say that if you didn't say it, when you saw them, it was like, wow, getting chorus line. But my question about costumes is, we just saw Into the Woods, and you designed a costume for the witch. It was Nova. However, when we saw it, it was
Maria Rizzo.
Maria.
Did you have to get 2 separate dresses for them?
It's a great question. So first started off with a compliment on the wow factor of those chorus line costumes, and then followed it up with, we just saw Into the Woods. Costume was designed for Nova, but we had Maria Rizzo on as her swing. Do you have to make 2 costumes? Talk to us about all of that.
The answer is it depends. For Nova, obviously Nova and Maria are not even remotely the same shape and size. So the big fancy dress was made for Nova. And much like with any understudy, if they don't fit into the original actor's costume, we never build an exact replica. It would just cost too much money. It would take too much time. So we find pieces, we enhance pieces. The dress that Maria wore as the witch was, I'm giving away secrets, was originally worn by Sherry Edelin in La Cage.
Oh.
And our lovely associate costume designer draped a whole bunch of leftover fabric from Nova's dress onto that dress. And it fit Maria great. She looked great. She was safe and comfortable and clothed. And no one knew that there was a different dress for the witch. Now, on the flip side of that, the person we hired to take over Maria's stepmother role when Maria had to step up and fill in for an injured Nova Payton, God bless Matthew Gardner, because he literally hired someone who was the same size and shape as Maria. So everything we had made for Maria as the stepmother fit on Rachel. It was beautiful.
Wow. Amazing. I love it. Yes, please.
We have some questions from the YouTube live stream.
Great.
And Diane asks, if you could buy anything you want, what would you want to buy as far as lighting?
Okay, so Dan, got a question from Diane at home asking what equipment you would like to buy if you could buy anything for the lighting world here at Signature.
Okay, there's no one thing.
Okay, give us a list.
Well, it would be a package. This answer a few years ago would have been a new lighting console for this space. And through a generous donation, we were able to make that happen. So this space has a brand new lighting console, a new control network, and it's performing beautifully. We love it to death. The next thing would be a moving light package. So it's going to be hard to see probably in the dark, but the bigger fixtures that are up there that look like they have arms on either side and a big base up top. So that's what we call a moving light or an automated light. And essentially it's like a big robot that just has a light source in it. And it has a bunch of different features on the inside of it, and it can point in any direction and dim and change colors and et cetera, et cetera. And those things brand new cost about $18,000 to $19,000. The ones we have that we own right now were donated to us for free from Barnum? Feld Entertainment. There we go. Feld Entertainment. So the moving lights that we have lived a very hard life on the road with a circus. When they arrived here, most of them didn't work. We got about 50 of them, and I had to repair a lot of them to get to the inventory that we have of 14 now today. So really, it's a moving light package. I would love to be able to retire those fixtures. They keep breaking. I just had to replace one yesterday. It's not their fault. They're just old. They're worn out. So yeah, that a moving light package is the number one thing, and we're talking a lot of money. That definitely.
But we look forward to your donation,
Yes,
Diane.
yes.
Thank you. Yes.
Another question from the YouTube comments, which is, do you accept any donations from the community or audience members if they think they have something unusual you might be able to use in future productions?
Oh, unusual.
And clarify later on by saying, I was thinking period furniture and or period clothing.
Okay, do we accept donations for period clothing or costuming?
It depends. Yes, we will always happily look at anything that people have that they think might be useful. A lot of it, we may already have something similar, or we may know that it's too specialized to be of general use for us to keep in storage. But we absolutely have accepted donations of things in the past that have then gone into shows. So yeah, reach out, let us know.
In the costume department, we take all donations because I'm a person who can't say no. Very often when people donate period clothing, because let's face it, clothing is the basis of costume. There isn't a single costume that didn't start its life as clothing, either in someone's closet or someone's mind. So when we accept period clothing, it's usually for research purposes because it's too delicate and too fragile to last for a run. Now, wearing clothes on stage is really hard on clothes, much harder than you would think. And furniture.
Yes.
Anything that goes on stage has a much harder life than your jeans or your dresses or even your shoes that you wear outside every day. It's really hard on clothes. So a period garment wouldn't last. It would tear, it would disintegrate. But we do appreciate the beauty of them and put that knowledge into building new pieces.
That's great. Thank you. Yes, please.
Another question from our Instagram story. Follow us at Signature Theater if you don't already. And the question was, how many copies of each costume are made?
Okay, so a question from Instagram. How many of each costume are you making? Just one, right?
It depends. For most shows, unless it's I can think of one very specific instance. For Assassins, we built 2 of the Sarah Jane Moore costumes because it's a very distinct look. We couldn't just pull random things. She had to have the same plaid trousers and the same kind of cream blouse. And so we built 2 sets, one for the actor and one for the understudy. Typically, we only build one. Like I said, it just takes too much time to recreate really intricate costumes for an understudy. Now, for Passion, we built 8 mostly identical Italian officers' uniforms because the designer said you're never going to find enough uniform pieces that look good, look the same, and match and fit them. These are Italian officers. They are sharp. So instead of spending all the costume budget on the pretty girl costumes, we got to build incredible officers' uniforms.
Gorgeous. Yeah. Any other questions? There's more coming in from online. I love it. Yes.
Diane asked another question in the YouTube comments.
How do I donate?
Lighting, prop, and costume.
Okay, most embarrassing fails from your departments. So generous of you, Pam.
If you have an answer, I have to think about it.
I block most of those out.
Yeah, fails. Well, I guess I'm defining fail as. I'm going to define fail as something that I said we could do when the designer asked for it, and we ultimately just could not make it work. I guess.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Because most of the time, there's multiple different paths, right? If the designer wants a particular thing and the first like plan A doesn't work, there's a plan B, C, D usually, to kind of achieve the same effect or to tweak it enough to get close, or we all just collectively decide, well, that's not worth it. Let's just cut it. Again, you got it.
Failure for me is not getting things into tech on time. So the audience members will never know that the captain's uniforms in Titanic weren't on stage for tech when they needed to be. That's mortifying to me because the director, the actors, everyone involved expects to have the things they need to rehearse. And if I don't get them there, that's a failure on my part.
I've got mine.
Here we go.
This is legitimately my worst day at Signature Theater in 9 years was during Assassin's Run. We were in a bit of a transition period in my shop, and I was sick for most of that, so that's my cop-out. But I got one of the guns wrong, and we actually had a reviewer write in a lot of space in his column about how I screwed up that gun. And that was legitimately my most embarrassing professional moment because the right gun was sitting right next to the wrong gun, and I just picked up the wrong gun, and then it went in. So that was my most embarrassing prop moment.
Please.
Yeah. Okay.
More.
So mine actually doesn't involve anything technical. A big part of my job is interpersonal relationships, and it's working with strangers. And because we have lighting designers come in here all the time that I've never met before, and you have to be able to work with them closely very quickly. I mean, within days, you have to be able to trust each other and communicate effectively. And there was Blackbeard. So I was still relatively new at Signature. I've been doing this job for a long time, but I was relatively new here. And the lighting designer in Blackbeard was somebody that was an old friend of Signature. He'd been here since the early days when we were over at the garage, and well known, like a very sort of famous lighting designer. And he visited during load-in, and we got into a fight about LED tape that was around the edge of the deck. I thought I had sold it as one thing about what we could do, and he thought I was talking about something else. And when he came in to look at it, and he said, well, why aren't you doing it the way I drew it? I said, well, no, this is the way I said it could only happen. And I was already frustrated, and it was just a bad day for me. He was right. I should have kept things in check. And it took him to be like, look, I don't talk to people this way. I don't deal with people this way. You're going to have to figure this out if you want to work together. And I did. I went home and had a good long look in the mirror and like, I need to come back tomorrow and be better. And so we were able to work it out. And when he came back for tech rehearsals, it was fine. And then he was here on Assassins again. I'm not going to mention his name. You can look it up if you want to. But he was, at the end of the day, he was super kind. He was great to work with. But it was just, you have to manage. We all have to manage working with humans as well as materials. And that can be a frustrating part of the job or a rewarding part of the job. It just depends.
That's great. Thank you. More from online. Yes. Okay, so similar to what we've talked about before, costuming swings. Yeah.
Swings have an incredible job to do. They fill in for multiple different people. So once the show has started teching and it's kind of in a safe place, we bring the swings up to the costume department. And if they're the same size as the different people they're going in for, we put the original actor's costume on them. If they are not, we go pull things, we alter things, we enhance things, we zhuzh things up a little bit so that they look as similar to the original concept as possible.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions, friends? Yes, please.
You all have these storage areas. Is there a cataloging system you use? Or is that part of your job security? I'm the one who knows where.
Okay, so the question was, you all have these storage spaces. Do you have a catalog system, or do you hold the job security by saying, I know where these things are? Yes.
Costumes does not have a cataloging system. I know a lot of theaters that do. And personally, I kind of don't like it because you get a permanent ironed in label in the back of a beautiful silk chiffon gown that you just kind of have to deal with, and it's ugly. So we don't have that problem here. And yeah, it's my job security because I know what's in that warehouse.
It depends. So I've actually been, one of the things I've been working on almost my entire time here has been getting a good, useful, clear inventory system in place. So currently we are using a program called Airtable, which I love, and allows me to have pictures and measurements and indication of what shows something has been in. If there's repairs that need to be done, we have to remember to use it because it's a lot to look at. But we simply have too many things to put them all into an inventory system. So for me, the majority of all of our furniture, all of our technology, there's cell phones in half of the shows we do. So we need to make sure we know which cell phones we have, which ones work, which ones don't work, which ones need to be taken into the Genius Bar. And so we try to keep a good record of that. We make sure we keep track of our weapons. And then most of the smaller hand prop items, dishware. I'm not going to put an entire set of dishware in my inventory because there's just no point. We're going to go pull something and it's what we've got, or we're going to get something that's different and is what somebody wants that we don't have.
Great. Any other questions? Yes, please.
Favorite costume, favorite prop, favorite lighting moments since you've been here?
Okay, favorite moments since you've been here. We've talked about the challenging ones. Let's talk about the favorite ones, which might be one and the same.
I think I might have given it away already. My favorite show that we've built was Passion because I love making men's clothing. So, sidebar, men don't get clothes made for them very often. Every single one of those actors who came into a fitting was thrilled to have something custom built. Those are my favorite things to build.
Props covers a lot of different areas and skill sets. Personally, I really like working on paper props the most. So my favorite prop I've done is actually the guest register from Grand Hotel, which I built from scratch. And I found a hotel in the Black Forest who had scans of their guest register from 1912. And was willing to send me those scans. They were lovely. And it is actually the first time I have been thanked by an actor for a prop. So,
wow.
Ben Gunderson, you're great.
Grand Hotel was a good one for us, too. There was just a lot of LED tape. I would say, from a departmental standpoint, Grand Hotel would probably be one of the prouder moments that I've had here because there was just a lot of work in making the floor light up, the ceiling light up, the columns light up with just miles of LED tape and all the practicals, and it turned out really well. Personally, my most proud moment here, and Pam probably could guess this one, is the copier from No Place to Go.
It's pretty great.
That was something that I don't even think Matt cared about. He was just like, yeah, it'd be cool if it could scan back and forth, and we could only afford a broken one. And so I said, okay, let me see if I can make that work and make it scan back and forth. And then, oh wait, I bet I can make it change colors. Oh wait, I bet I can do all of that from the lighting console. And so, yeah, it took a couple of weeks of me figuring out, learning a brand new part of my craft. I've never messed with programming electronics before, Arduino specifically, and it was me taking the time to figure it out. And at the end of the day, we were able to make it work and do a cool thing. And it was in the show for all of 5 seconds.
But those 5 seconds got a huge response every time I saw the show.
Well, there you go. So that was probably my proudest moment here.
I love that. I love that a lot. Any other questions? Yes, please. Do any of your departments use volunteers?
I guess no. Yeah, I guess no. I mean, the reality of the situation is it's a lot of specialized work, and there's a safety factor involved too. And so there's an amount of training that we really require of our hire workers. We don't just bring in people from the streets or just anybody that's willing to come in and work for however much money we're offering. I very specifically look for people that have lighting experience, and I'm sure Pam and Natalie do the same thing for their respective professions. Like there is, unfortunately, like to find somebody with the requisite amount of training that we need that's also willing to work for free
Right.
is a pretty rare bird.
We've got one in the back. Yeah. I love it.
Surf light. Oh, okay. Well, send us an email.
Means. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Fantastic.
Great. If you magically could have whatever skills, talents you wanted, what job in theater besides the one that you currently have would you like trying out?
I'll answer real quick just because I have the microphone and it's really easy. This is a cop-out answer. Nothing. So when and I'll be real quick. When I was looking for grad school programs, I chose Florida State, and one of the reasons why was because they were not going to require me to study anything else. There are a lot of grad programs out there that make you multidiscipline. They want you to study costume design and scenic design or something like that. And I knew by that point I didn't want to do anything but lighting for the rest of my life. And so the answer is nothing. If I can't do lighting in theater, I'm not doing theater.
Got it. Thank you.
Kind of same. I mean, I kind of do a little bit of everything anyway, which is why I chose props over costuming, which I did for a while as well. You know, I've worked as an electrician. I've done a lot of the other positions, and I just know that I don't like doing one thing the whole time at all. I like being able to work out different skill sets and learn new things every time I need to do something new. And yes, so also cop out, but I don't disagree at all.
I am also going to choose the same cop out.
I loved this question.
I have spent my entire life sewing. I love clothes. I love what I do. I've poured my entire being into doing this. And as much as I respect my coworkers and am also always fascinated by what they're working on and the magic that they create, I love my own personal brand of magic.
So, cop out is what it is, and but it actually feeds my next question. Given that you love what you do, this will be our last question of the day. What does it give you? How does this feed you? What the work that you do?
I really love making stuff as true to what it would have been as possible. So again, with the paperwork I do, if I'm giving somebody anything, it's going to be the right thing. And it doesn't matter if nobody else can see it. It doesn't matter if the audience can't see it. The actor can see it. And I know that usually, at least, will help them with their character and will help them tell their own story. And it might not be something that they knew about or cared about. For Grand Hotel, we needed train tickets, and I went and I researched like which train they would have been on at that period, and like did all of that work, which I didn't need to do, but I thought it was really cool. So doing that research, figuring out what things would be and why they would be that way, and putting that information forward in whatever form I'm able to the actors, to stage management, to the director. I really love that.
That's awesome.
I got one. The thing that really does it for me is when the garment that I put on stage looks exactly like the rendering that the designer gave me. Because that's a little nugget from that designer's brain, and I made it into a three-dimensional thing.
I love it.
So this is lighting, entertainment lighting is really the marriage of two of my I think, just what I'm here for. And so when I was in high school, I was a very creative person on the side, like musician and doing the acting thing. But then I was also big into math and physics, and lighting is a really great marriage of those two things. I'm able to be super creative while using physics. I mean, light is bound by certain parameters. You can only do certain things with it. You can try to change it, but it's going to do what it's meant to do. And so finding ways to be creative with what is basically a constant, I think that's really what does it for me. It feeds both logical and my artistic side.
I love it. Thank you all for sharing with us today how you make this magic happen up on stage. Thanks to all of you for joining us here and at home. We'll see you all next month. Have a good day.